and action. Okay, Gordon Dundas.
How are you?
It's episode 5.
Is it
Series 3. How are you? I'm very well, Gordon.
Fabulous.
And we're recording this on a Friday, so we're even better.
It is a Friday, absolutely. And the sun is shining, although you wouldn't see that in the sauna.
No. They won't let me out. Actually, I don't know how you've programmed the lock. Only opens up when you hit the button.
Exactly. Out, in, out, in.
Gordon, it's been a great week for whiskey, and we're looking forward to an even better week next week, of course. But your job, before we get to all that, is to either A, start the show off with a look at the news, or start the show off with a whiskey.
I'm starting it off with a whiskey because it is Whiskey Unscripted. What I have here in an Auchentoshan glass, because it's the only glass I could particularly find, it's not an Auchentoshan. It is a Kilkerran 8-year-old. Now, this is a brand that has what one might say a loyal following. I absolutely love this whiskey because I bought this when it came out a couple of years ago, a year ago, something like that, an 8-year-old cask strength at 57.1%. And I mean, we do really good sherry casks at Tamdhu. Kilkerran's a great whiskey too. This has been matured in Richard Oloroso sherry cask, so plenty of that influence from the cask. But Kilkerran is an absolutely brilliant whiskey, and made by the guys at J&A Mitchell down there in Campbelltown, and really is a wonderful example of. I just love it. It's got a really, really great array of flavors. 57.1 as well. Doesn't nose of it.
Peated, Gordon?
Yeah. Not really. No, a little bit, but I mean, it's not the first thing you pick up. There's a little bit there, but you pick it up more in the palate. Quite spicy on the nose, quite cinnamony, quite a bit of meatiness as well. Really lovely whiskey, lovely and thick. 8 years old, really good.
And we've also already on this series of podcasts talked about one of the ambassadors for Kilkerran, the man with the impossibly deep voice, who's got a career in certain movies if he decides to go into it. Mitch, you know?
Yeah, Mitch. Yes, Mitch. Oh, hello, I'm Mitch. Yeah, great guy. I haven't seen him in ages. I'm looking forward to hearing his dulcet tones across a whiskey show somewhere soon. But yeah, fantastic team down there, and great to have a great whiskey from Kilkerran. Absolutely big fan of what they do.
I'm before I go into my tasting here in Whiskey Unscripted, I would just ask you, Gordon, did you ever raise a glass? We've just had St. Patrick's Day. Did you raise a glass of Irish whiskey on the 17th of March?
If I'm honest, it passed me by a little bit.
Yes, I know.
However, I do have some Irish whiskey from my time representing Irish whiskies, so I may pour myself a little Connemara this evening, a little peated Irish whiskey. The
reason I'm saying that as well is because I've spent, just before we come on talking and doing the show, I went back to find the episode where we had John Cashman, who you worked with, who's an encyclopedia on Irish whiskey, and so I renamed the episode and started to put the descriptions of who was in the episode. So it's episode 4, series 1. If you go back, if you're listening to this, you can go back into the archives, and I've put it up there. John Cashman, Irish whiskey expert, episode brilliant. 4.
Fabulous. So I mean, John's forgotten more about Irish whiskey than I ever learned, but I mean, just an amazing wealth of talent in terms of his knowledge of the industry and his delivery of it in market. Really, really great guy.
Great. Well, I'm going to go across here, and of course we're recording this audio, but it's also on YouTube. And Gordon,
we are before YouTubers.
Yes, I was about to say something about the number we have surpassed, but I'll leave that just now. Suffice to say, more people are listening than watching, and I suppose looking at ourselves. Is that a surprise?
I think the main problem is that the sun glistens off your forehead so much that people can't actually see anything on the YouTube stream. So what are you drinking? What's that? That looks like a Dunvegan, if you ask me. And that, to me, looks like a Linkwood 12. I can read.
Wow. So that's, if you're listening to this, you can go to YouTube, and it's we're lucky to work for a company, Ian McLeod's, and their private bottling, our independent bottling arm, one of them called Dunvegan. And they get, parcels of liquid or casks. In this case, Gordon, it's 3 hogshead, unchill filtered, and bottled at 43%.
Nice.
Which I think is quite unusual to unchill filter beneath 46%. Would that be right? Would that be fair?
That is quite unusual. That is pretty unusual. Yeah, that's very true. Very true. It's yeah, that is. How is it? How is it?
To be fair, I've had this one before. It is
clearly
wonderful.
The bottle's nearly gone.
That's the trouble about being on YouTube. I've had it for a while, but it's. I think what I love about that one, Gordon, and I get the same feeling sometimes. I've had the occasional drink of Rosebank. There's something about its oiliness, but it's so fresh, but it's kind of oily, and it's a difficult one too. I think in Rosebank we've got worm tub condensers that gives the spirit a sort of oily feel to it, but it's still very fresh because it's triple distilled. Maybe the liquid's maybe not in the class of Rosebank, but that's the same feel. I've got a lovely freshness, but it's an oiliness at the same time.
Nice.
Of course, does that make sense?
And it does make sense. You pick up what you pick up in a whiskey. How many times have I picked up a whiskey and don't get anything in the tasting note because, it depends on a whole range of different factors. So yeah, you pick up what you pick up. Absolutely, and just enjoy it. That's the main important thing. The worst thing you can do as a punter or as somebody who's bought a bottle of whiskey is read the tasting note and then go, I'm not getting any of that, and that's the worst thing you can do because it doesn't really matter as long as you enjoy it. So that's what matters,
I think. And Gordon, before we begin the news, because I almost gave it away, today we just passed on iTunes, Spotify, 10,000 downloads.
Fantastic. Now, what you will find very shortly is that, we will soon have sponsors. We will soon have lighting, studios, proper, all that sort of thing. All those people listening on Podbean or as an audio, it's going to sound better because we are now big players. I mean, we've spoken about being 55th in New Zealand. I think after our Cadrona, which has been so well, I mean, what a great episode that was.
Yeah,
I'm surprised if we're not number one when the charts come out at about 10 o'clock this evening.
That's right. At least number one.
Joke. I don't know when they come out.
That's right.
No idea. We really don't care. We just want great content. But 10,000 is fantastic. And look, if you enjoy it, we love doing it. And that's why we keep doing it. I mean, it takes a bit of time, but we do enjoy doing it. And can I just say, we're now sitting down at episode 5, the lack of planning that goes into it is spectacular. And I'm overjoyed by the fact that we don't plan this very much, as you can probably tell.
Well, Gordon, I've planned this because you've been looking at the news. So what have you come up with in the whiskey news?
There's quite a bit of whiskey news, a couple of things I just want to touch on. Spirit of Speyside Whiskey Festival has decided it's not going to go ahead this year, normally at the beginning of May, end of April. So there's going to be a virtual program, which is available on their website. Tamdu is involved with certain events, along with all the other great distilleries of the area. So make sure that you have a look at that. As an option, you can buy a sort of pass that allows you to access all the events, and you can buy packs for certain things should you wish. The other thing that I think, obviously, there was a Mcallen auction this week at another ridiculous price of nearly £500,000. And there was one, Gordon, which you picked up, which was to do with a distillery in Canada. What was that about?
Yes, I think that this has happened throughout the decades of countries or businesses trying to use the word Scotch in their label and trying to sell it as Scotch whiskey, which, of course, as you'll know if you're listening or watching, is really against the rules of this protected product.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's effectively, I think it's a distillery in British Columbia in Canada, which is using the term Scotch whiskey for basically a Canadian distilled whiskey, which the SWA is very, very strong on. because, you know, Scotch has to be made in Scotland. And so the SWA is very strict on this and takes action against, you know, other markets if, you know, to stop people trying to indicate Scottishness when a whiskey is not Scotch. And that's really, really important because spirit producers in other countries cannot take advantage of the reputation of Scotch to produce whiskies. We've worked hard to do that. We've worked hard to protect that, and it ultimately protects the consumer in the end in terms of the quality and in terms of the integrity and provenance of a bottle of whiskey that's got Scotch on it. And I think it's really, really important.
Not looked into the exact article. I'd love to get the SWA on, but they are in this country. I just wonder how you police that worldwide.
Well, I mean,
engage lawyers in that country. Is that how it goes?
Well, I mean, the SWA is obviously sort of effectively overlooks the industry, and the industry polices it as well. So, I mean, it's, you know, I think even people aren't aware that when you produce a bottle of whiskey, you produce a label. It needs to effectively be sanctioned, approved by the SWA, and there's strict guidelines of sizes of text and all this sort of thing. You know, obviously, you know, 8-year-old whiskey has to be a minimum of 8. There's a whole load of other rules on production. But the other thing is, of course, is protecting the entity that is Scotch whiskey. And when you have such a diverse product, from blends to blended malts to single malts and other, you know, single grains, that does need protected against people who may want to play on that to try and turn a profit with it. And it could be a very inferior product. I'm not suggesting this whiskey is, but it could be a more inferior product. So I think that's a really, really important thing that they do, and we will endeavour maybe to get the SWA on. I'm not sure if we can manage that. We'll see if we can twist an arm here or there.
Yes,
just to give us an idea of how they look out for these things around the world.
I'd love to know that. Yeah, that's just how it works, how it operates. So we'll keep an eye on that one. That's it. Excellent. Another piece of news, Gordon, is this is going out on the week of International Whiskey Day. And we will be doing an event on Facebook and YouTube is live next Friday. That's the 26th of March.
We are. We're doing our first Glengoyne live tasting of the year. It's going to be me and you. Special guests to be confirmed. There's a lot of people on holiday, but the special guests to be confirmed.
So, Gordon, you mentioned about the Spirit of Speyside Festival. I have, on the other end of the line, as if by magic, the man in charge, the chairman of the entire festival, Mr. James Campbell.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
I'm very well, Gordon. Yourself?
Well, I mean, I'm very well. I'm feeling a little bit wrong that I'm drinking a Kilkerran at the moment. I should be drinking a Speyside whiskey, probably a Tamdhu, but I am drinking a Kilkerran.
Yes, and I'm having a Linkwood as well, so just having a tasting of...
You're coming on Gordon number 2, but Gordon number 1, we'll allow that one to pass. Just
Now, you're just off the golf course. How was the golf?
Golf was very good. Thank you very much, Gordon. I very much enjoyed it, and I'm in a terrific mood because I played really well for a change. It doesn't always happen, so absolutely in a great mood. Yeah.
And let me just point out to everybody, we're allowed to play golf, obviously, at the moment, but also the weather's really quite good in Scotland at the moment. So, you know, up in the north, they play golf, and in Glasgow, everybody's got their taps off, as they call it in Glasgow, but I'm joking.
I'm surprised you can get to the golf course, James, because when the weather's like this, every photographer for every tourist brochure in the world from Scotland is all out taking photographs of Scottish landmarks now. So it's a wonderful site out there just now, as is your website. And I was on it all last week, the Spirit of Speyside 2021, this lovely whiskey festival. Could you explain how it's going to shape up this year in May?
Yes, I'm very happy to, Gordon. And our board, the Spirit of Speyside Whisky Festival, of course, is all of the whisky companies based up on Speyside gather together and try and do their bit for the local economy and the local community. And now we're in our 21st year. We've gone from starting off where the week of our festival was the quietest week on Speyside, with no one there, no one in hotels. And now, as you'll both know, that it's very difficult now to get into hotels. So it's been a great success story, and we are very appreciative of all our whisky companies who really have given their time and all of their support for us to do this. But Unfortunately, last year, because of COVID, we had to pull the plug on our 2020 festival, and we were almost faced with the same position this year. But we've decided two things. Firstly, we've postponed the in-person festival until the 3rd, until the 8th of November. And we're very hopeful that with vaccination programs going well, yes, and everything moving in the right direction, that we will be able to stage the normal, in inverted commas, Spirit of Speyside Whisky Festival in November.
Fantastic. Good.
But in the meantime, of course, we are thinking that our loyal whisky fans from all over the world who come to Speyside in the last few days of April every year and into early May, we thought that we would try and put on a virtual whisky festival this year. Mm-hmm. When we set off on that journey, I thought we might get 25 or 30 different events, but we've actually got nearer 60 events. And the program will run for 4 days from Thursday, 29th of April, up about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'll go all the way to about 10 p.m. on Sunday evening, the 2nd of May.
Wow, what a whiskey extravaganza for people. And you can oh, that's going to be amazing. So you just, is it running through the day as well as the evenings? Is it, how do people get involved, James? How do people sign up?
Well, absolutely. Well, it's really starting each afternoon. We'll start about 2 o'clock each afternoon, run right through to the evening, all of the way. We've got a 4-day pass, which will cost £15. And that will allow anyone purchasing the pass to view and interact on all 60 events.
Oh, fabulous.
So it's an amazing value, and it's going to be great fun. The platform is called Air Meet, and it's almost like walking into a big hotel, huge conference room. There's a stage, there is booths, there is tables, and people can interact and, as I say, speed network and meet up with all of their friends from all over the world, which is fantastic.
That is fabulous. And what are the sort of events that are taking place across the festival? What are some of the distilleries coming up with for this festival?
Well, the distillers always exceed themselves, I must admit. They always blow me away with their events. I have to start with Tamdhu, to be fair to you guys. And
where else?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you both, Gordons and Ian Weir and Sandy McIntyre. We start with an absolutely brilliant tour of Tamdhu Distillery, which so many people will want to see. And I think, Gordon, you were involved with Sandy in that. And
that's right, yeah. I mean, the problem with Sandy, as you know, James, is he loves to talk. But, you know, and Gordon, you know as well. But that'll be great because it's not normally open. So that'll be fabulous. What about there are other distilleries, of course, James. What about other distilleries?
But I'm still going to finish off with you because I'm very, very pleased that you guys, with your Tamdhu single cask panel, are going to be selecting your Dalbiali 4 and distillery exclusive. It's just brilliant that you do that for us.
I'm excited about that.
A great, we're very honoured that you do that during the festival. That's terrific.
Brilliant.
The final one I'm going to talk about as well is obviously you guys have done well in the IWSC with your gold medals. Sandy is going to gather together his fellow gold medal winners from other distilleries, and that is going to be a fabulous event as they talk through their winning drams and just share a little bit of banter between themselves, which is going to be a lot of fun.
I will be tuning in for that because that will be fabulous.
We've also got Anne Miller, who you will both know very well, better known as the Dram Queen now, and she has got some of the old faithful, Charlie McLean, Dave Broom, selecting a piece of music and matching it with a Speyside dram and just enjoying a little bit of conversation. That's going to be on Sunday evening, and I think that's going to be excellent. And we've also come up with the idea of Would I Lie to You? And there are one or two people on Speyside who you would immediately think we must get these guys into the team. And one of the first people that came to my mind was your friend Sandy McIntyre.
He likes a good porky.
But Sandy is in a team along with Dennis Malcolm from Glen Grant.
What a legend, Dennis. What a guy.
superb, and Alan Winchester from the Chivas team.
Yeah.
And they're playing against George Grant from Glenfarclas.
This is going to be brilliant. Yep.
Ian Miller from Glenfiddich.
Oh, yes.
And also Kirsten Grant from the William Grant family. Now, I have had the privilege of hearing one or two of the tales already, and I can assure you guys that you're not going to have a clue if they're telling you the truth or telling you a lie.
That sounds
fantastic.
fabulous. What a mix of events. What a great idea. And you know, there's a whole load I've spotted on there as well that I'm just like, I'd love to see that. I've never seen that. I've never heard of that. There's so many great events, and James, full marks for pulling it together. It's you know, it's great to see. It's really great to see, and I think.
Gordon, sorry, are we getting inside the Ben Rea for a sort of first look?
Yes, well, there is. I'm not sure we're getting. There will be some bits and pieces to come, possibly, Gordon, on that. But there are other distilleries which we are not open. We've got a lovely tour of Dalmunich. But again, Alan Winchester taking us on a speed trip round there.
Dalmunich, obviously, for those up east, built on the Imperial site, of course.
Absolutely correct. It was, and built by one of my friends, Douglas Cruikshank, who you'll know very well from Chivas. Spent a lot of time, getting that distillery up and running, and it's absolutely sensational. I have to say. But we've got lots of tastings, some amazing whiskies to be sampled, and just so many different events. And as I say, if you for a ticket of £15, you can interact, you can be part of this. Listen to all the chat.
And for certain events, people can buy a box as well. Is that right?
Yes, there will be tasting kits. Some incredibly. We've got a talk by on the Gordon MacPhail team with Charles McLean, and they're going to be sampling the Mr. George 1956 version from Glen Grant. And some amazing whiskies to be sampled on Sunday evening. That's the last event, which will take us through till about 10 o'clock. So but all the way down the price range. We're also hoping that people who are new to whiskey, here's a great opportunity for you to learn much more and to interact with people who have a great knowledge.
Absolutely, and I think it's safe to say that within the Speyside region, you have some great diverse whiskies, the most distilleries of any of the regions, and it's so great that you've managed to pull an online offering together with bearing in mind COVID, bearing in mind all these different things that are affecting us. It's fantastic, and I think people should. You can get as involved or not, as if you know what I mean, and that's what's great. There's £15 to listen to some of these absolute amazing distillers is an absolute steal for me. So I'll be signing up. So it's
I should
fabulous.
say, Gordon, as well, that this platform, because as you can understand, many distillers want their events at 7 or 8 in the evening, Friday and Saturday, but there is a capacity that you can catch up, because it will be available, so that you can watch the event and do a catch up within 24 hours. And that's brilliant, because I know from my own point of view, it's very difficult to know when there's 3 or 4 events coming together, which one you want to see. But if you can record them all and watch them at your leisure with your friends and over a nice couple of drams, I think that would be lovely.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. And just one question for myself, just to for the listeners: is the Speyside Festival, when it runs out with COVID, is it the biggest whiskey festival in the world?
Well, it depends how you define the word biggest. I mean, I don't think anybody can put together 50 distilleries, and the area that we cover is, you could definitely say biggest in terms of, we've got 710 events in 2019. So from a number of events point of view, we've probably got the title biggest there. So we don't like to be, in Speyside, we're very modest, as you all know.
We've just passed 10,000 downloads, so we're like, big is good. We're big this year.
Well, the great thing is that it's more about the people. I mean, the spirit of Speyside has got 2 meanings. Obviously, there's a whiskey, but it's the spirit of the people who work in the whiskey industry, who work locally and get involved and provide such a fantastic welcome to people. I think we had visitors from 34 different countries on Speyside last year, in 2019, And so many people come back again and again and again, and it's just it's a friendliest place at that time of year. So I know you guys have been there yourselves.
I love it.
Absolutely. And James, one thing I'm always interested in, obviously as a Speyside sort of heavily involved in the Speyside whiskey industry, have you ever gone to that other whiskey festival in Isla? Have you ever been over there?
Is there another whiskey festival? I've never. Is there one? Sorry, Gordon.
I
told you I was in good form today, so I think I just. But no. All credit to Isla. I think it's a fabulous festival. It's a different type of event altogether, and there's room for so many. And the whole month of May is Whiskey Month in Scotland, and I think each of our festivals that we support each other, we help each other, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant festival.
It is, and I've been there many times, and it is. I think you could just call it's a different experience to Speyside. They're both great in their own ways, and obviously if you like the smoky stuff, Isla is a great sort of pilgrimage for many, but Speyside, the diversity on show is fantastic. The people, everything across everywhere, it's great. So, James, thank you for coming on. Any questions, Gordon?
No. I'm just also about to say is we'll try and dip in and speak to Sandy beforehand as well, and we will keep trying to promote this and get people on it, and I'll definitely be watching as well. So we're talking about it in the lead up to the 29th of April on that weekend. So we will be doing our bit here as well, James.
Well, thank you very much, guys, and thank you and all your colleagues for the Tamdhu have been great supporters of Spirit of Speyside, and we appreciate your input and your help all the way. So good luck to you both.
All the best, James. We'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Take care. James, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Gordon, that was superb.
Absolutely great, and I think it'd be a great virtual thing to get involved with, and it's just the way we are. But things are getting better. Let's hope things are getting better.
And I would like to do, when we get nearer the time, tales from the festival. We will share some of our stories from the festivals of the past, and maybe get people to come on and give us their chat as well, just to get us into the Speyside vibe. Gordon, it's challenge time. We started the whole podcast with a 20-second hand wash challenge. And I just thought it's challenge time. I thought I wanted to get one back.
You love a challenge.
I do love a challenge. Now, I was just looking. I love whiskey names. I was on the website looking at, we talked about Pappy von Winkle, and I looked at Elijah Craig, and I thought, how many whiskies, I wonder, could you name that have the name in the label? Which is one challenge, so have that. And I thought I could then come back at you with people's names connected to whiskey labels, if you see what I mean. So they're not on the label, but or whiskey terminology. So you have a Cooper in whiskey, and I like my movie, so Bradley Cooper would get me a point. But you have just got, so I have asked let's go with this. How many whiskey bottles have just got normal names on them, and I'll do the ones with connections to those whiskey names. So on you go, Gordon. I've got my list here.
Jim Beam.
Wait, right, one. Okay, I'll try and counteract you. We've got, what's that in my hand? It's a glass. One of the wonderful composers of the 20th century, Philip Glass. Boom, one each. Okay.
That's a little bit. Okay.
Come on.
Fine. Okay, fair enough. That's actually a Glencairn glass.
Any glass you can put whiskey in. You always say it, So okay, what have you got?
Let's go to Scotland. Let's go to Johnny Walker.
Of course, that's 2-1. I'll take Johnny Walker, and I will say, we've talked about it when we spoke to Lauren. You put your grist after you've ground it down into a what? A hopper. And one of the great American actors plays a lot of villains. Is called Dennis Hopper. There you go, 2 each.
Okay, let's go back to America. Let's go to George Dickel.
Ooh, Dickel. George Dickel. That's 3. Fans of music from the 60s will be familiar with Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And if I was allowed it, you could go Crosby, Stills, and Mash, and I could get a doubler. But I'll just take 1 point. So that's 3 each, Gordon, in this name game.
Well, friends of the show, staying in America, Van Winkle.
Okay, Van Winkle. That's great. That was a great episode as well if you want to listen to it.
It was a fabulous episode. And did you know do you remember a song from the early 90s? And I'm now trying to remember the song was called what was the guy's name? Oh, I've completely forgotten. This is rubbish now. That's rubbish. Do you know this?
Yes, was it Lamal?
No, it was forget it. Forget that.
Right, we're going to come back to that. So we've got Happy Van Winkle, and that's 4-3. But you've got, when you're doing a distillation, you have the spirit run, and there's a head, a heart, and a tail. And of course, Kevin Hart is one of the great American stand-up comedians. So, boom, 4-H, Gordon. It's the main game challenge. What have you got?
Oh my! I'm surprised
this will take off. Please play this at home.
I'm surprised you didn't come up with heart to heart. Okay.
Or Miranda.
Yeah, there's a lot of options there. Okay, let's go with. Oh God. Let's go to Scotch. Let's go to Irish. John Jameson's.
Oh. 5-4. Now, don't as you let me this have one, but you know, Bell's whiskey, the fine blended whiskey, Bell's.
Yeah.
The man that invented the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell's. It's a tough one. Is that a post? I think that might be a post. I might have just hit the post with that one. 5-4. Gordon, you've got a lead.
Oh, that's hilarious. Jack Daniels, there you go. There's another one.
Is that the biggest selling American whiskey in the world?
Yes.
Right.
Sells about a third more than Jim Beam, I think. Quite a lot more than Jim Beam.
Highland Park, it's got quite a lot of case sales. I think Highland Park has got quite a lot. Big fan of Victorian explorers, and Mungo Park from Scotland uncovered the Niger and parts of the river system up in north-east Africa. Or, of course, fans of rock music would have Linkin Park. So I might just take Highland to Linkin Park. 6-5, Gordon.
Well, you could also say I think there's a suburb of Chicago that is called Highland Park, and it's not that far from Lincoln Park.
Right. Okay.
So that's pretty good. I'm now beginning to struggle.
6-5.
If I said Dewars.
Yes.
Have I said Dewars?
No, you've not. It said you could. No. 7-5. Dewars. White Label, again, one of the big selling Scotch whiskies, if not the biggest selling in America.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go to America. I quite like Maker's Mark, but I do like my Roman history. So can I go Maker's Mark Antony? You know? Et tu Brute. 7-6, Gordon. I'm 1 point behind.
Oh dear, this is unbelievable. I'm going to go with. I'm struggling now. I'm thinking of. Evan Williams, there's another bourbon. Lots of bourbons seem to be named after the people that founded them.
Yes, Evan Williams. Yes, that's 8-6. Evan Williams. I like Irish whiskies. We've just talked about John Cashman, episode 4, series 1, after St. Patrick's Day last week. And Bushmills, the oldest distillery, 1608. But Paul McCartney's ex-wife is Heather Bushmills. Or you could go for just John Mills, for those actors, you know, out there that people love. The old 1940s and 1950s is a classic English actor, John Bushmills, or whiskey.
Yeah, you're struggling now, Gordon, I think, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah, is that Ross? I might just take 8-7, 8-7.
I think one more and you'll be done.
Right.
God, everybody's shouting at
the... That's good. That's good.
It's a good question. Buchanan's.
Oh well, you know, play at home. The whiskey challenge name game, I think we could call that. That's I think you just edged that. I'm getting a bit tenuous, but we enjoy these things. Go enjoy a good challenge. The other thing, we've got lots of features we like doing, and one of the features we launched this series was objects that changed the course of whiskey history.
Ah, that's right.
We talked about the cork, you know, the removable cork stopper from about 1923-24. I'm
not that familiar with them because I generally throw them away when I open whiskey.
And we had the tartan trousers to launch this feature. It was about whiskey tourism. You did the glass, the Glencairn glass. Could we do this week the object not so much an object as a metal that changed the course of whiskey history. That metal, of course, is copper.
Of course.
Gordon, why is copper so important to the whiskey making process?
Well, I mean, obviously, when you're making single malt, copper pot stills are what every distillery has to use by law now. But obviously, it was understood that copper at a very early has unique elements to it that allows the extraction of unwanted elements during a distillation process. I mean, it's as very simple as that. So, for example, if you were to go to a same still setup as Glengoyne, and you had stainless steel stills, for example, the spirit would be so horrible, overpowering, lots of impurities, lots of flavors that we do not want. This is where copper extracts. This is where we get that wonderful elements of copper that that really, really impart and add also into our whiskey as well. So copper pot stills are essential to the production of single malt whiskey for sure. And it's a it's an amazing metal when you think about it, and how these stills are produced as well by Forsyths and these types of people. So incredible. Amazing.
I see. We talked about the Speyside Festival earlier on with James Campbell, and I remember going up there to do a bit of training. Sandy won't let you loose. And I remember Forsyth were putting a little sliver around one of the Tamdhu stills, lifting it up, and amazing craftsmanship. But really, we would not be tasting the whiskey that we are now without copper. It just would not.
Whiskey would not exist as it does now without single malt. Would not exist as it does now without copper, because I could, if I had a spider diagram, which is a diagram that can show you the sort of main components in a new make spirit, those unwanted ones of sulfur and that type of almost that metallic taste that you would get would be so apparent if the stills were stainless steel. But copper, obviously a very, very different metal, and it's obviously just it really is an amazing to produce what we need to produce for spirit. It just works.
It conducts heat well. It does. Malleable as well as doing all the things,
and it wears out as well. So you need to replace bits of stills to ensure that you have the right thickness, and you find distilleries probably get thickness tests on their stills on a fairly regular basis to ensure that none of it's wearing away. And it can be at the top of the line arm where there's a lot of hot vapor touching it, or it can be in other parts of the stills it tends to wear out. But certainly if you look at the olden days where they direct fired stills and they heated them from underneath, copper worked really well. It also works now with the heating pans and those types of things within the bottom of it, and it's incredibly efficient as well. So it's a really, really good you just wouldn't have single malt as it is now without it. So it absolutely did change the course of history for whiskey.
A lot of the earlier stills are clay. Some of the very, very, very early stills that some suggest are way back in the 5th century BC are stills, are clay. And some writers suggest that the Arabs of the Islamic Golden Age, Jabir ibn Hayyan, the 8th century genius, polymath, who had experimented with all this equipment, and of course alcohol being an Arabic word, and alembic, which was the precursor of the still. Some commentators suggest that it was these people from the 8th and 9th century AD that worked out that copper was indeed the best material to be made. And then the northern parts of Italy and Salerno around the 10th, 11th century started to really perfect the process. So it's a wonder. I love all that sort of creation of still technology. And copper starts making its way from the 11th, 12th, 13th century.
Absolutely. And even from the perspective, and you see it regularly, you see people who wear a copper band around their wrist.
Yes.
And you could see the blueness, that it's almost like it's extracting the bad stuff out of your body. And that's why a lot of people wear them. And it's a very special metal, and it really has made the Scotch whisky industry for sure.
So there we go. Objects that change the course of history.
Well done.
Gordon, I've got a special guest coming up. Now, you couldn't make the interview with Diego Borras, but I did send you Diego's...
You did send me his nuts.
His nuts.
You've sent me three styles of his nuts. Peated, sherried, and malt.
Yes, it's all about food pairing, and Diego is a real knowledgeable person when it comes to flavour pairings. And this is a project, it's really a new business he's launching with almonds from his homeland of Spain that he coats in a lovely flavourings, and he's pairing those different almonds flavourings to each whiskey. Now, I want you to watch this, Gordon, and try and eat along. The nut that says S-S-O-L are for maltier whiskies. The one that says A-Ora is for sherried whiskies. We did the Tamdhu 15 with that. And M is the peated whiskies. So it's 3 types of almonds there. These will all be available during the year in this country. And the S, I think we did with the Glengoyne 12. So it's very interesting. I'd love to get your thoughts on this afterwards. Food pairing and whiskey. Great interview. So sit back with the nuts, with your whiskies, Gordon, and enjoy Diego Borras. Here he is. Diego, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me again. Good to see you, Gordon.
Not at all, Diego. Now, we've got you on because we're talking, obviously, food pairings with whiskey. Now, last week we had Ian Burnett, who's had quite a journey. 3 years it took him to establish his products and then take it to market, and now World Truffle of the Year. Your journey is just beginning with a new venture and a new business about pairing something with whiskey. Take it away, Diego.
That's correct. It's been an ongoing process already for almost 2 years, but I am almost ready to launch a food pairing option for whiskey drinkers, which is a crafted almond with different flavors that will match different flavor profiles.
So these are, and you're right up my street. And we were going to talk about this last year, but we had to hold off. You're now able to bring it to the attention of the world. But I love nuts and I love almonds. So yeah, tell me why you chose that as a product. Why does it work so well with whiskey?
Well, there's a few elements. The let's say principal one, it has to do with healthy lifestyle and trying to match being a whiskey lover with health and taking care of yourself. So when looking at the roots of the product, we're using Mediterranean almonds, not any specific, not any other variety, but Mediterranean ones because of the oil content that they have. So they're going to contribute to a much better texture. And we're all Mediterraneans in production and development, so we want to move forward with that Mediterranean lifestyle concept. And we work with natural ingredients. We want to be as clean as possible. Obviously, the recipes that we will see today, they've got plenty of complexity, but we want to be as Mediterranean as possible, if it makes any sense.
So it makes perfect sense, because those listening or watching to Whiskey Unscripted will know that a lot of the whiskey behind me, a lot of whiskey we drink in Scotland, has matured in casks made from wood from the Mediterranean. So having a story of Spanish almonds, and we talk so much about Spain to Speyside at Tamdhu, and it's not just ourselves, but it's just a wonderful story. And I love when you mention about the natural oils in an almond. That just already my brain's about oils and wood leaching out into the whiskey. So, but you take the almonds and you put them through a process. Is that a flavouring process?
There is a process in which we coat them with a very thin coat of sugar, and that sugar acts as a gelling component. So we're going to have a mix of ingredients that are 100% open and accessible. So we also prevent any allergies and so on. But you add them to the almond, and that they get added to the outer surface, and that combination is what's going to give you that flavor profile, which I must say, some of them are unusual in a good way.
I love them. I have a little trial of them here in front of me. So take us through I know you're a man that loves his whiskey. We've met you across in Scotland many times, Diego. You know you're Scotch. So you have tasted Scotches and various profiles and tried to create this coating to go on the almonds. So take us away. What was your thought processes? What have you come up with?
Well, we live in a very interesting age for whiskey, so it's very complicated to start right off the bat and cover all whiskeys. So we try to look.
Huge subject, yes.
Yeah.
I know.
we try to look for a line of best fit of three main profiles, what we categorize or call classic whiskey. So mostly ex-bourbon barrel, but perhaps a hint of sherry cask here and there, malty, floral, touch of sweetness, the honeysuckles, and so on. Then we have the heavier profiles. We have a recipe for them, such as even bourbons, not necessarily Scotch, but we're looking for something that will stand toe-to-toe with your bourbons, your heavily sherried whiskies, something a little bit bolder with a much more strength, even perhaps alcoholic strength, not necessarily flavor profile. And then the last one, of course, it has to be for the Pete hates out there. So we have a recipe. There you go. That's a fantastic skull.
Yes, if you're listening to this, we're talking on Zoom, so Diego's looking at some of the imagery behind me, which is Smokehead, which is what your other almonds are for.
Yeah,
really lovely peated, smoky whistles.
Yeah, it's not a human skull, by the way. It's just a Smokehead skull.
Not yet, Eddie. Not mine. So it's interesting. Various profiles to try and match, and it's very difficult to match individual whiskies, but you've asked me to pour three, and I've got these almonds in front of me. So, Diego, take me away. What are we doing?
What we're doing is hopefully treating the almond as you would treat a whiskey. So you look at it, you nose the almond. So let's start with the malty one, which would be what in our portfolio is called Aura. So you have a sweet cinnamon, cocoa aromas, some even brown sugar in the background. And then once you just put it in your mouth, start chewing it, see what you think. And once you're probably halfway through and all those flavors are starting to mix and blend together, that's when you have a sip of, which one are we having for this one? The Glengoyne 12, right? Yeah. And that's when you keep chewing, you keep letting the flavors develop. And the whiskey and the almond.
Yes. So flavoursome, the almonds. And what I get straight away is just how soft and smooth that almond is. Once you start chewing it, it just melts in your mouth. Beautiful almond. Now, people think this is going to hurt your teeth. Just wonderful. And that cinnamon that you mentioned, I think picks up that profile of the little cinnamon gingery bite you get from the 12. Lovely. Coating the mouth.
The idea is to produce something that will stand side by side with the whiskey. We don't want to be subdued by the whiskey. And in this case, we started with a milder profile. It's very subtle, fairly pretty elegant. And that's why we go for more floral profiles, not so heavy. The next recipes you'll see are a little bit stronger in terms of the flavors and more intense. Are you with the second one now?
Yes, I held up the second one.
Great. So the second recipe that we have is devised for, again, the bourbons, the heavily sherry whiskies. That's why we have a Tamdhu 15, beautiful dram, by the way, one of my favorites. And what we have, you probably get some smoky notes on the nose. And once you chew it, you get, we have some green aniseed, we have some, those smoky notes are from Lapsang Souchong tea. We have some brown sugar as well, and then a little bit of nutmeg to bring it all together and give it some muscle. The same thing, once you have a sip of a whiskey, you'll see again, once those flavors are together, the textures are going to change in your mouth. There's going to be a finish, and the almond is going to survive at the end, alongside with the whiskey, not just underneath the whiskey, which is once again the priority when it comes to developing this product.
Yeah, again, so smooth. Even though it's a Lapsang Souchong tea, it's still a lovely, clean feeling in the mouth, as you were saying at the beginning there. Picks up the really sherried notes wonderfully well. I think that richness of that whiskey and the nuttiness and the oil and it's clean, and then the wee bit of smoke. I don't think I have tasted anything quite like that.
I'm very glad to hear, Gordon. Well,
and I'm still getting that lovely nutty oiliness in the mouth, the little bit of sweetness. It's just a cracking combination. And we've got another. I'm really looking forward to the last one as well. Let me just get mine.
That one is not for the faint of heart. I'm very pleased with this one. There you go.
Going to get the smoke head.
There you go.
Going to the Island of Isla for this one.
That one is going to start with probably a very lemony, citrusy note because there's some lime salt in it. We have some sea salt. Then there's going to be a pretty sharp element to it, which is green cardamom. And then once you're chewing halfway through, you're probably going to get a wave of sweetness that is going to be fairly coastal and a little bit maritime, which is nori seaweed in the mixture. And once you go in for the whiskey, what we have identified with specific whiskeys, that there is a very silky transition or conversion of the whiskey. Once you sip the whiskey and it starts merging with the oil, there's some spectacular silkiness that makes people just raise their eyebrows when they have them. They go, "Oh, this was unexpected." And
well, that is, we have to take the hat off the smoking. That is absolutely. I got the citrus. The citrus is in there absolutely wonderfully well, and that it's a creaminess in the whiskey as well. And I think that creaminess, just as you say, after you start chewing it down, you've got the citrus goes into that sort of creaminess as well, and that saltiness, which I love. The salt. But it's so much going on, Diego. It's a real experience, and I congratulate you on trying to take Scotch whiskey and trying to put it into an almond. Food pairings in general, any broad rules that you're guided by, that maybe guided this project or just in general, that people listening or watching can be guided by? Because you've looked at the big types of whiskies out there, the malty ones, the sherried ones, the smoky ones. What are the general rules for you?
I think that it all boils down to understanding what you're going to have that food with, understanding the liquid. There is, for me, we have to understand the little, not necessarily to a microscopic level, but the nuances related to the liquid, because those are going to give you some hints. For peated whiskies, that every single or most of tasting notes are going to talk about iodine and maritime and so on. So for me, you can go either the opposite direction or in the same direction. Those are the two main ways to go with food pairing. So you want to enhance and increase that and amplify that, or you want to go against it, much like with coffee and chocolate. You go something a little bit bitter and then you get something sweet, you contrast. So depending on the direction, maybe a cheese or maybe a dry tuna is going to work perfectly well with the same whiskey, but it all has to do with our plan and understanding that liquid. That's what I've tried to do. Obviously, there's also a component of innovation in which I want to try and bring something different, not just because of the platform or the canvas that I'm using, which is an almond that is a Mediterranean almond, but also with the ingredients. I think that there's a very, very broad range of options that we can include in our food pairing options that just take some time to think about. We are here to do something different, but we need to understand the liquid. That's the bottom line for me.
That's fantastic. And plans going forward, without giving too much away, we're going to see these in our shops or whiskey distilleries in the future. How can we get a taste of these?
I sure hope so. I'm working hard to start talking to people as we speak. The idea is to either have specific selling points initially in Europe and specific countries of Europe, and then obviously any distillery is going to be a good option for the almonds, particularly after discussing the different flavor profiles that they can work with and so on. But the field is pretty open, in that sense. I'm starting to contact people and see who might be interested. So
well, you can contact us through Whiskey Unscripted if people out there are listening. I mean, we know of one or two industry people listening. They're simply sensational. I'm not just saying that. They're simply packed so full of flavour. And if you love almonds and that lovely, as you say, just melt in your mouth creaminess, and that fits in so well with the whiskies, with the natural oils from both, and the flavourings are just out of this world. Absolutely love them. Diego, I wish you all the best with them, and we will catch you up very shortly, either in Spain or in Scotland.
Let's hope
that will happen. You bring the almonds, I'll bring the whiskey.
Oh yeah, that's done and done.
Diego Borras, good luck with in the future, and thank you so much for joining us on Whiskey Unscripted.
Thank you very much, Gordon.
Gordon, I just wanted to do that after Ian Burnett. 2 weeks ago, we did the Highland Chocolatier, pairing chocolates with whiskey. But here's something a little bit more clean, nutty. There's a creaminess to it, but it's not anyway like a heavy cheese or a chocolate. It's a very interesting. I think almonds work so well.
Oh, yeah.
So, I wish him all the best. I hope for his sake, it really goes down well.
I think it's a great thing. I love nuts. Some people, nuts aren't good for. We know that. But I love to have a peated nut, a nut that would work really well with a smoke head or an Isla, a maltier nut, something that's going to be probably a bit better with more of that malty flavor coming through, which you may find a bit more in a refill bourbon, something like that. And then a sherried, obviously, something like a Tamdhu, of course, maybe a 15, I think, would be perfect with those nuts, and even something like a Kilkerran potentially. But lovely idea, because almonds, if you think about it, you forget how often nuts turns up in a tasting note for a whiskey, and you can get even things, sounds a bit silly, but bourbon cask associated with coconuts, it's a nut, but peanuts come up quite a lot. Almonds come up probably more than anything, or hazelnuts in more sherried cask whiskies. And having just tasted a couple of these, you pick up that sort of sherry note, you pick up that creamy texture that comes through from those nuts, and that's going to work so well with a whiskey at the right strength of the right style.
And what I like, it's just incredibly, he's been through so many flavour combinations, but it's Lapsang Souchong, there's nori seaweed in there, there's all sorts of sort of spices as well, not too overpowering, because it's just very, very clever. And I think the days of maybe bacon fries, quavers, and chocolate hobnobs for pairing with whiskey, possibly in the past.
Well, you say that, but scampi fries do go well with an Isla whiskey.
Yes.
And skips. Skips just go well with anything.
Well, Gordon, that's a jam-packed episode, from name challenges to Diego Borras to James Campbell of the Speyside Festival, and all the whiskey news and some of our own whiskey here, and the cocktails. Fabulous. So thank you for
fabulous, joining. Brilliant, great to do another episode. We're going to I think we'll be doing another couple more episodes, and we'll take a little break over the Easter sort of period, and we'll be back again. But yeah, we still, we're loving doing it. We hope you're enjoying it, and we get some great feedback. So thank you. I'm not going to
say too much, Gordon, but I've lined up a challenge, me and you, against another Whiskey Society club. So that is coming up. It all pulls off. Yes.
Can I phone a friend if I need to?
But if you're listening to this before the 26th of March 2021, please join us for Facebook Live. Glengoyne.com. All the links there on the Glengoyne Facebook page. Go there.
Or on Glengoyne's YouTube channel, which is just typing Glengoyne into YouTube.
So we'll see you then. God,
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Thank you. Bye-bye.
On the way